Hello, and welcome to My Good Content with your host, Byron Labar. Today, I'm truly excited to have Emma Pallant. Emma's a one-time aquathon world champion, a three-time duathlon world champion, recently finishing second in the half Ironman distance at the World Championships. She has 41 top three finishes in the half Ironman distance and an astounding 22 first-place finishes in the half Ironman distance of 70.3. I'm honored to have a friend and a former coach that coached me in the duathlon, Emma Pallant. Well, thank you for coming on. I have some questions to go through with you, if that's good with you.
Cool. Yeah, perfect.
So most presently, I know you were over in the States. And first and foremost, I want to go back, to your past and stuff, but just start with the present right now. And something that really resonated with me, because I know you were a runner. In London, in January, you ran a 32:33 in the 10K on the roads. So tell me about that race, because I know running was so important. You've gone to triathlete, but I wanted to start off with the running part of your life.
Yeah, so it was actually quite a surprise because literally I'd had a bit of a calf niggle at Christmas. So my running load had been quite minimal. I'd really upped my swimming and biking. So yeah, it was the Hoka, one of my main sponsors. They do a get together every year, a weekend in London, and they sponsor the Winter 10K, which is super cool event. You literally get to run on closed roads in the center of London, like around all the big places. I just thought I'm gonna go there. Like I ran it the previous year. I want to say maybe I've done it 2 years. But yeah, all the Hoka athletes are there, so it's going to be like a good quality field. And flying there on my way to a triathlon in Miami a couple of weeks after, I just thought it would be a good test of my run legs to see if that kind of bike swim fitness could go into some kind of 10K. I was hoping for like a mid 33. I think maybe just because I was so relaxed, I just got into the race, and the men and the women start together. Yeah, I was surrounded by a couple of guys and just kind of used them to work off, and I really enjoyed it. It was so cool. Like all my family came up. So I don't get that very much anymore, to have like my little nephew at a race is one of the first races he's come to. So yeah, maybe just a happy athlete means you run a bit faster.
Yes, sometimes when you don't have the expectations, it makes it a little easier. Because what went through my mind with that time is that's close to, Olympic trials times. I mean, the standards that you need. So in my mind, I know you've been a triathlete the last 10 plus years. But when you ran that time, did it enter your mind at all? Like maybe thinking, hey, should I give the Olympics a shot in running?
Yeah, I think at the moment I'm under no illusions. I know my swim needs a lot of work. So it's something that I've always put at the back of my mind. Like when I went from running across to triathlon, it was always with the intention I still wanted to run faster as an athlete, and I wanted to actually do some marathons. So at the moment, like triathlon's the priority, but I definitely want to see how fast I can run a marathon. I think last year I did a half marathon and ran the time for the world half marathon, but the timing again, it didn't work. It kind of clashed with one of the major triathlons. Yeah, you have to always prioritize, but like my thought was, okay, if it fits in, like I would definitely like to do some of the big championship events. And I think that's what's so nice running here in South Africa, is you can literally go down the road to kind of a local half marathon, and the quality of the field, the number of Africans that come over from Ethiopia, from Soweto, from across the borders, they're just so strong, and the field is so deep in women, and I think that's a massive advantage to kind of racing locally here, that I don't have to travel to a high quality race.
Okay, so speaking of swimming, when you're coming out of the water, because as you mentioned that your one weakness in the half Ironmans, what's going through your mind? What's your mindset like in that first 10K, the transition to get on the bike? And you're probably trying to get yourself in a good position, because I know you can't draft off individuals in front of you. So what's your mindset through that stage?
Yeah, I think it really helps that I've come out of the water before, and I've heard people shout 5 minutes, like I'm 5 minutes down out of the water. I mean, it's only a 1.9K swim, and you're already 5 minutes down, and I've managed to get on the podium. So I think if it's anything under 5 minutes, I think I'm actually like pretty happy. And I think that sounds weird to some people because they'll be like, oh my word, you come out the water and someone shouts you're 3 minutes down. Like surely that messes with your head. And actually I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. Like I think I've learned over the years as well to be in the moment and to enjoy the chase. And that first bit onto the bike, I think everyone rides that first bit. I don't know if it's a tactical thing or it's a mind thing. I think everyone rides a little bit harder than they know they can sustain. And I feel like that's where you kind of, if you're going to end up with people like 20 meters apart, that you find your group within that first 10, 15 Ks. I'm training a bit more. We've actually sometimes taken a turbo down to the swimming pool and done like a hard swim effort and then jumped straight onto the turbo and practice that first like 4 by 5 minutes or something like really punchy, to get that high power, like the legs used to getting that blood flow, because your legs don't do a whole lot in the swim, and to then get onto land and be like, guys, you got to wake up. Yeah, it's something you got to train in, and we're lucky we found a pool that will let us take that turbo to.
So speaking of that, coming off the swim in the duathlons that you did, and then you also do it in the triathlon, but you said how the legs feel. So how do you compare from going from like a run to the bike in the duathlon, then back to a run versus the triathlon?
Yeah, that's another thing that I think helps. And when I was doing kind of duathlon in the winters, I think it makes you strong because it hurts so much more going run to bike than swim to bike. Like swim to bike, it's more like waking them up. When you go from the run and you got to jump on the bike, it's like those guys are already hurting. You've got to actually be like, okay, I know you're tired, but we're going to have to put it in like little stages. Be like, okay, when you're on the run, I'm thinking about the run. The minute I'm on the bike, I can't think about my legs are tired because I've just run. You got to think, okay, I'm on the bike. And it's kind of using those positive self-talk, like trick your mind, be like, your legs are fine, they're fresh, like you've had them screaming at you way harder than this in training. And I think that's another good thing, like we train it in a lot. So in training you're always tired, like if you're in a block you're always going into sessions tired. So if you get used to that feeling and pushing those hard sessions when you're tired, then when you're in a race, you're like, okay, come on, like my body's fresh. I'm going into this fresh. And you can kind of talk yourself that actually it's not so bad.
Well, and that brings up the point. I know you use deep, dark place, like in workouts and in a race. Put us inside Emma Pallant-Browne's mind in practice and in a race.
Yeah, I think for me, that deep, dark place is that place where like you've hit that pain, like that good pain where you're almost flying on the run, that your lungs are bursting but your body's almost floating, or your legs are screaming on the bike but you're moving fast. And I feel like there's a point when you're pushing hard, there's only so much pain like you can go to. Like there's a point where you hit your top pain and then you just have to hold on. And when you hit that, it can't get any more painful than this. I feel like that's it. You're in the deep, dark place. And now all you got to do is embrace being there, be happy being there, and be like, yeah, this is what it's all about. Like I always tell myself, like, if I'm hurting now, the other girls, they must also be hurting. It's just survival. You got to last in there longer. And I feel when you really do it well, when you're surrounded in that deep, dark place, there aren't any of those little voices saying, oh, maybe you can ease off here, or maybe just take it down. You don't have to go that hard. I feel when you're locked in, you hold on to that pain for long enough, it numbs you a bit. And yeah, I feel like that's where I've had my best sessions.
That's great. And it's good to hear what you mean by that dark place now. So we've talked about the swim and the bike, the run, when you're getting out of the water and you're like 3 minutes behind, you're thinking that's great. And most people would be thinking, really? So when you're going into the run, what are you thinking? What's typically going through your mind? Like say if you're a couple minutes behind going into the run.
I think I always try not think too much about like the people ahead. I think if I get too caught up in the chase, then I start like pushing. I think you still got to pace it a little bit. I know my rhythm, I know my pace, and try and kind of settle into that, find a bit of a flow, find a bit of like a good feeling. And then I'll try on that second kind of 10K, to be like, okay, now you got to start, it's going to start hurting a bit, and you got to almost make that conscious effort to be like, I've got to start winding it up. And I feel if I do that, I normally keep quite an even pace because I think naturally you kind of drop off a little bit. So yeah, by consciously trying to speed up, I think I keep fairly level, and then I don't care how ugly it gets. In that last 5K, you're close enough to know if you're really blowing, you can still hold on to it. So yeah, it gets pretty messy and ugly in that last 5K, but yeah, I'm always prepared for that.
So with that being said, what are some of your behaviors? Because I know we talk about the mental part and the physical part of being a triathlete or just even an athlete in general. And I sometimes like to dive even deeper. What are some of your behaviors on a daily basis in a consistent way that allows you to be at your level of a professional triathlete?
Yeah, I think I quite enjoy routine. I think one of the reasons I love training at home so much is like I know the place. We have a 28K kind of safe road loop that I can do on my own, hardly any traffic. It's almost like you're in a nature park. You see the monkeys and the lions on the other side of the fence, and I'm happy to go for 5 hours all day long. Like a lot of the guys I ride with will be like, "Can we get out on the road?" But I'm happy to do the same loop if I know it's just continuous riding and I can get good sessions in there. So I'd say I don't really get bored. Like I do love routine and I love kind of what I know. And from that, if I have an opportunity to go back to a race that I know versus a new race, I do like to go back to the ones I just feel more relaxed. My coach is very good. He doesn't like me to be too much in routine. Like I won't always know what my training is the next week, the next day. He'll mix it up quite a lot because I think I could easily be that person that really enjoys a session, would want to go back and think that makes me stronger. I want to do it all the time. Whereas he's very much like variation, like to get stronger, you always have to switch things up. At the start of the day, I'll kind of look at my training and I'll plan it all out in the day, make sure I come kind of recovering in between sessions. I like when I'm in the session to just be thinking about that session. So for example, today, like I swam first thing and I didn't think, oh man, like I've got a long ride later and then I'm going to be stepping on the treadmill and doing those pickups. It's key to just be in the moment and be present. Like I know that I've done my planning in the morning, that I know I can fit everything in and at what time I'll do it. I'm very much someone that likes to focus on the here and now and what you're doing at that point in time.
And speaking of that, you said you like the routine and your coach changes things up a little bit. What goes into your prep for 2025? How do you schedule the next year?
Yeah, so it was a bit tough this year just because the T100 is a new series. So they only really let us know the schedule in December. And we'd committed to the series and we just weren't sure of the races. We went into January not knowing when the first race would be, but knowing that it probably wouldn't be until March so that we could get kind of base training in there. And then as soon as they released the dates and those races were the priority, then I looked at where we're going to be for those races. For example, when we had to come over for San Francisco, I was like, well, I don't want to just go all the way over to America for one race. Like it makes sense to find another race around that kind of time. To go from South Africa to America is a long travel. So I kind of thought, okay, maybe we can break it up and do a race in Europe on the way. That was kind of the thinking. How can we have blocks of training and then a couple of races to make the travel worthwhile? In effect, you've got a world championship in November and one in December. Those races, we're literally just going to fly in, race them, and fly back out and do 5-6 weeks blocks going into it. So that's the stage. I've done quite a few races this first half of the year, quite a lot of travel, hardly any training at home. And now this second part of the year is all about training at home and throwing all my eggs into one basket and just being this big block. And we're just doing one race. We're putting it all into this one race. Then we're flying home and doing exactly the same. And we're going to do that for the next 4 races. That's scary because I haven't really done that. I'm someone that races a lot and loves to race a lot. But we kind of realized from the last couple of years that I don't train as well when I'm away. I get more stressed. I'm not in my routine. They're all foreign roads, foreign places. Yeah, we kind of took that feedback and that's how we scheduled this year.
So what's your next race coming up?
T100 in London.
Okay, and when is that?
That is the end of July, whatever that last weekend is in July. I think the 24th
Okay, so
or the
good. So you have a
27th.
good month at home, then you can train on your own stomping grounds.
Yeah. And also it's at altitude. So yeah, I do feel the gains there.
So with the technology that we have today from when you started triathlons 10 years ago, how has it changed? And what kind of gadgets, tools, recovery tools? I know you have one of the rings on now. What do you feel are most beneficial for you, and what do you use?
Yeah, it's changed so much. I think even in terms of wetsuit technology, like the wetsuits that I used to race in, now they feel so different. And I feel like things are always moving forward, and every year there's something that comes out. Like the bikes are quicker, the positions are quicker, and there's more and more testing. I feel to be a professional athlete at the top, you kind of have to have some sort of aero testing each year. And then with running, the shoes are a crazy different. Nike kind of led the way there. But I think in terms of top of the range wetsuit, TT bike, wheels, and then run shoes, I think we're just learning just how much active recoveries, your circulation type of thing, and your sleep are so important. So I'd say that's something that we've invested in quite a lot. I wear this ring, just tells me my HRV and my sleep. When you've got jet lag or when you're traveling a lot, sometimes you don't notice how broken your sleep is, or if you're not sleeping deep, or if you're in a new bed or a new environment. And there's a massive correlation for me between that and getting run down and getting sick, and kind of performance wise, my training will go down. So it's just been that little number that I can keep a real close eye on. And that's been really helpful. An eye mask, it really helps me to sleep. It's not really technology, but I've just found that's something that really helps me to sleep and helps in my recovery. And then the Normatec boots, I'll sit in them for half an hour every evening, and it just flushes my system. And yeah, I always feel like I just recover that much better.
You do race a lot, and then you have the travel. And we've talked about how you do like to stay close to home with your routine. How do you mentally prepare when you go for like a block of the United States? How do you prepare for that mentally before you leave and then when you're on the road?
Something that we've found the times I've traveled on my own the last few years, and I always like perform better and train better when Jared comes with me. And that was kind of a sacrifice. Again, this year we said we're just going to throw everything at it, and that was something that we said was important in that list for him to come with me. So yeah, he takes a lot of that stress out. He loves it. If we go to a new place, he will have researched the best places to ride. He'll then download it onto his Wahoo. He'll have it all planned out. So he talks quite a lot to Tim, my coach. Tim will give him a session and be like, okay, you need to find this kind of place, and then he'll plan that out for us. He does a lot of like the logistics. I find I panic less, or I'm more chilled when I travel, when everything's like booked up. I keep a little diary. I just write everything down, and that just keeps me calm. If I know, okay, exactly, this is the car hire for this trip, and it's going to be at this place. This is how we work back our timings, and the map of how to get from there to the hotel, and just all the little things. If I really pre-plan, then it takes the stress out. Travel with my own food, lots of snacks, because I like to eat just little and often when we've got big travel days. And hydration. Yeah, take my own electrolytes. Just everything that I can do to make it as familiar as possible, and just try and relax around it.
And speaking of that balancing act, you're saying when Jared comes along with you, that does take a lot of the stress away. How do you manage to balance your professional commitments and maintain a healthy life with Jared outside of just the sport?
He's really good at being balanced, and I think this was one of the first times I actually fell in love with him, was when we've been dating for like maybe a year or two, and it was a big, like a 70.3 in South Africa, so it was the only professional 70.3 there. And we did a lot of preparation over, because it was an early race, so we had to train over Christmas, and his family and a lot of people made sacrifices for us to do this race. And it felt like a big deal, because it was his home race, and he wasn't racing because he was just going to be out there supporting me, giving me splits. The morning before the race, I got the sniffles, and then I was like, nah, I'm going to be fine. It's not so bad. And then I woke up race morning, and I felt terrible. And I was like, I can't tell anyone. This has been everything that we've been training for when we should have had off season. And yeah, I knew this race meant a lot to him. So I was like, I feel a little bit off, but I'll be fine. Like, I'm fine. And then I literally dragged myself through that race. It was a horrible race. I was so sick in bed after. I couldn't go to the awards. And I thought he was going to be really upset because I kind of felt like there was an expectation that I would win it. And I came second. And I was like, man, like he's going to be as gutted, because I was gutted. At that point, it was still early in our relationship, and I didn't take well with failure. I felt bad when I failed, but I felt even worse when someone else had put in just as much as me. And then I feel like I failed for him too. And he was totally chilled about it. He was like, Emma, it's only a race. It doesn't even matter. We're going to go get you recovered. Your health is the most important thing. Like you're sick, like just chill out. We're going to relax. And he was just so calm and just so the total opposite to me of being, I can't believe I had such a terrible race. This is so embarrassing. And I was like, wow, this guy like puts health and family and all this stuff like way before performance. And he trained just as hard as me. Like he'd been with me through all that. And I thought it would hit him a bit harder. And then I realized this is one balanced guy and I can learn a lot from this guy. And I think he's chilled me. Like I still get super nervous and I do beat myself up a bit when it doesn't go well. But he has that sideways, like, we're going out with friends tonight. Like we're just like after a race, whether you win or lose, like we're going out with friends. And yeah, he's really good for me.
Jared's a keeper then.
Yes, yeah.
That's great. I wanted to touch on this too. It was May of last year in the one race that you had your period. And, that didn't bother you. It was on social media and everything out there. And I admire that because it just showed you're a human and you're a female in sport. And I just wanted to get your thoughts when that happened.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, like, I didn't think people would really notice it. And then a guy commented on it and was like, oh, that's not so flattering for Emma, like maybe change the photo or something. He thought he was doing me a favor. And I just thought I wasn't embarrassed about it. For me, my mum's a doctor. She's been so open and like she's really exposed us to a lot growing up. And for me, I was just like, this is normal, like bodily function. And I was out there performing. That was the last thing on my mind. But I thought actually, if a young girl saw that and we were covering it up and hiding it, I thought that sends a totally wrong message, because that's kind of reinforcing, it's something they should be ashamed of. I think it's a barrier, and I've talked a lot about it, and females in Ironman, and they do a really good job at kind of promoting female participation, because the number is so low compared to males, comparatively in a lot of sports. And I think there are so many of those barriers that you can't just really be quiet about it, because I think you have to actively show people and say, it's not embarrassing. But unless you do something to show, I'm really not embarrassed. Like, so I thought, okay, then I need to post my picture and write about it to show someone noticed it. I'm not ashamed. Let's talk about it. And if you do feel ashamed, tell me why, because it's something we can get past. I saw a comment the other day about one of the guys in triathlon had said that because the men's field in pro triathlon was so much bigger than the female field, the prize money, men should be paid a lot more. And I was thinking, well, my brother comes from a ballet. He does ballet, and there's a lot fewer men in ballet compared to the women, but they all get paid the same because they're out there, they're doing the same job, putting in the same hours. And surely if you have that kind of imbalance, then rather than say pay more to more people, why don't you say, why is there this imbalance and what can we do to make it more equal? And why don't more guys do ballet, and why don't more females do professional triathletes, And I feel like that's the angle we still need to come at it from. And it obviously is a thing because there are a lot fewer females. So yeah, we still got a lot of work to do, I think.
I loved it when I saw it, because to your point, if you do push it away, then that's teaching the younger generation that, that's not right or that's wrong, and that's not going to help the whole situation.
Yeah, 100%.
Going back to, I think it was 2012 when you were training for the 1500 for the London Olympics. What happened with your knee and the transition over the triathlon? I know cycling, you didn't really have experience with it, but then you hopped in a triathlon and you did really well. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I was a runner, and I missed out on Beijing Olympics. I was a junior. So the junior World Championships clashed with the senior Olympic trials for Beijing. And they said to us, myself and my best friend, we qualified for World Junior Champs. And they said, if you go to the World Juniors, then if one of you medals, we'll take you as the third person. By their policy, they had to take the first two in the senior trials. And then if one of you medals, you will be the third athlete for the 1500. And we both medaled, but my best friend came first, I came third. So I felt like I just missed out on Beijing, and kind of lived it a little bit through her. I helped train with her to it, but it really just made me think, okay, London, that's my time. And I trained really hard, and like, admittedly, I trained too hard. I did my coaches sessions, then I added in a lot of my own sessions. And I got a knee tendinopathy. I ran through the pain. It got worse. It was literally every run, it would swell up, and I was icing it. And got to the point, I was fortunate to be on UK Athletics funding. And it got to the point they were like, listen, you have to do something about this. You can't keep running. I'd pretty much gone through so much of the tendon. There was like a hole in it. So they thought it was torn, but the tendon just had unraveled so much it had come apart. So I had to go in for knee surgery, and it was quite a long process to get back. And I did get back, but it was still the old story of coming back too quickly, still running through pain, and not actually fixing the problem. So I think that was the thing. They just said it was too much volume. You just have to run less. And I was like, how am I going to compete with the other girls by just training less? I was quite frustrated, and I started swimming and biking, and then went to the Olympic trials for London 2012. Knee still wasn't right, dropped out, was in a really bad place. And I was mentored by Kelly Holmes, and she said, listen, like, I've got a charity spot at London Triathlon. Why don't you do that in a couple of months' time? Like, keep doing your swimming and biking, and hopefully by then you can run. By then I could run, and I watched London 2012, and I watched the triathlon, and I was like, okay, this is my new goal. Always with the intent to go back to running. But I met amazing coach Michelle Dillon. She looked at my running and was like, this is why you're getting injured. You've got this like massive loping, like you're almost jumping. And the commentators had always said, oh, there's Emma Pallant. We know her from her lovely long stride. So I'd always thought it was like a good thing. And she was like, no, like, you need to relearn to run. And I was like, I'm coming to you to learn to swim and bike. Like, running is the thing I can do. She was like, no, like, we're going to change your running. It took a long time. And yeah, now I can do 2-hour runs, absolutely pain-free. I think the cross train, the swimming and biking actually have kind of given me a better engine. And I know more runners now are using that cross training to kind of supplement their volume, which I think is a really healthy thing. And I think it's making some super fast runners out there.
And to the point you said about that of runners, I run 3 marathons or 2 in a year, and I can barely make it. And I think, to your point, it's the cross training of the swimming, the cycling that helps the running.
Yeah, definitely. And even with form, like, I feel like on a bike, for example, your cadence, you can't overstride. And I feel like that kind of economic and that kind of running underneath you also helps your muscles get less sore than when you run.
So what do you have ahead then? I know you have the races coming up this year, the T100s, the World Championships, hobbies that you do outside with Jared, and anything personally good coming up this year?
Yeah, so we have to have a bit of a mid-season break. So we're going to take a week off after London, and that's kind of going to be like resetting so that I can make it to December. So yeah, we'll go down to Durban. We've got a new little nephew. Jared's sister's had a little baby, so we'll go and play auntie and uncle, and we take the dogs on the beach. And we're a bit obsessed with paddle, which I'm not sure if you guys have paddle. It's I think it's like pickleball.
Here.
We love it. Yeah, we'll play plenty of paddle. When you're training in a big block, you can't do everything or see everyone, and we'll definitely make time to kind of catch up with friends. And Jared's got a million coffee places he probably wants to visit, and then we'll finish it off with doing a gravel race. He's super keen on this gravel race, so I said I'd do that with him.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic. And how are the dogs doing?
Yeah, super good. They're here sleeping. Jared's parents take them whilst we're away. So they've had 6 weeks of holiday. So they've got a little bit of holiday weight that we're going to run
That's
off.
me when we leave and we leave Kobe with my parents. We come back and I'm like, what'd you do? Like, they give her treats all the time. They feed her human food.
They love it, hey? Yeah,
Yeah,
they get
when we get back, it's like now they're on a diet.
shame. Kobe must run. Oh, bless.
So thank you so much, though. Excited for you. How's everything with your knee now?
Yeah. Literally since triathlon and since kind of less of a running load, and I honestly have had no problems.
Oh, that's fantastic. So will you be back in the States next year again?
Yeah, so we've got a T100 Vegas. So we'll be back for, I think that's, in October. So we'll be back there. And then, I'm sure, again, a couple of races next year for sure.